Welcome back to Anvil of Doom Miniatures. My name is Dietz. Now, I would argue that there's nothing more iconic than a Goblin Green base. Now, I didn't write the rules on basing miniatures, and I'm pretty sure we don't know who did, but if you're painting a miniature from the 90s or 80s, you better believe it's got to have a Goblin Green base. What else color are you going to paint it? Brown dirt, some basic flock, and a black rim? Don't be ridiculous. Are you going to try be creative and put some 3D bits on your base? I don't think so, buddy. It's Goblin Green, and don't you forget it. But anyway, today I'm here to show you how I paint a Goblin Green base, and it's a true art form, so I suppose there's a lot of different ways to do it. So if you think you have the superior Goblin Green base recipe, put it down in the comments, let us all know, and share some of your wisdom. Before we dive in, there's a motto that we all live by, and it goes, don't be a ween-er, paint your base as Goblin Green-er. And once you have that memorized, we can get straight into it. First up, I like to glue my sand down before I prime or paint my miniatures. I use a fine sand and good old-fashioned PVA glue. I do get asked from time to time what sand I use, and I literally just get it from the beach. I always recommend having an empty jar in your car, just in case you run into some sand or dirt that you can use for hobby-related purposes. After the glue's dry, I go ahead and give my mini a prime and paint it however I want. Be as creative as you like. Go for it. The world's your oyster. But once you're done having that fun, it's back to reality and it's back to Goblin Green. Now, to get ample Goblin Green brightness, I always recommend painting your base with a coat of white or a coat of Wraithbone before you put the Goblin Green paint on. It just gives it that little extra pop. But if this is too much of a chore for you, don't even worry about it. Do whatever you want, it's up to you. Now for the most important part, and that's applying the Goblin Green paint. I use Goblin Green by Vallejo, but there's a few other Goblin Green variants by different brands out there. You could also use Warboss Green by Citadel Paints. But with a name like that, let's stick to Goblin Green by Vallejo today. Now, I apply 3 or 4 coats over this beauty using a really long skinny brush so I can get into all the hard to reach places. Now let's go ahead and frost this sand's tip so we can get ample brightness. But before I do that, I generally like to use some blue tack, or as people like to call it in the rest of the world, poster putty, over my miniature, so none of that fancy paint gets on any of my minis' legs or anything like that. I like a bit of a pop of yellow to my Goblin Green bases, but not too yellow, so what I do is mix 1 part Uriel yellow to 1 part Dawn yellow, and just kind of mix half and half until I'm happy. And then it's time for a good old-fashioned dry brush, and I just do this all over the sand, being super careful not to have too much paint on the brush. There's all these crazy new ways to dry brush, but I'm pretty old school, so I just like to wipe the excess paint on a bit of paper towel. Now, sometimes you can go a little bit too hard on the dry brushing and it becomes too yellow, so you can always use a bit of a green wash over the top of it, or I like to use Gut Ripper Flesh by Citadel, but not today because I did my dry brushing just right. After this, I clean the rim with some more Goblin Green, and then it's ready to game or to put on the shelf. Now, make sure you hit the like button if you enjoyed this video or if you didn't like this video, and also hit the subscribe button to see more of my content. Anyway, my guys, remember, it's Goblin Green or nothing.